Demos Helsinki is a self-organizing organization, or works with the principles of self-organizing. But I'm not a preacher for self-organizing. I'm not saying like everybody should go self-organizing. But I do feel for the issue, because I think it's an example of leadership change we need. You've heard from my colleague today, so I don't need to introduce Demos Helsinki again. But like somebody was already writing in the chat, please do put questions and comments all along the way. And it would be great if you can write already what questions do you have in mind connected to the, like, what the self-organizing, what kind of questions and thoughts it raises in your minds already. I already told why I'm here, because I think this is part of a bigger change. I will look at where the buzz, so to speak, started around the word self-organizing, and looking at, isn't this something for only startups and IT sector? And then connecting that to personal experience on experimenting with self-organizing since many years, and then time for conversation too. So it's not news to anyone, very little news for you as regional planners, that the world is changing. And we're saying that we're moving from this industrial or even industrial capitalist era to post-industrial era. And it would be very odd to think that if so many things we're trying to lead change, that the leadership shouldn't change. And of course, it's changing all the time. As we are moving from industrial era to something else, we're now call it post-industrial, but we don't know what we're going to call it. We're very much in a transformation period. Maybe also eras are always named a little bit afterwards. And the same things goes for the paradigm shift in leadership. There is no like one answer what it is. But I think when you look around, in many places, and what I suggest myself is that whatever its name is going to be, it's about much more collective leadership. And I think you are already living that reality through your work, even if I don't know about all of your leadership structures, but if I think how you work with complex questions, and this is why we need more collective leadership, is that the issues are complex, the world is complex, we're so interconnected that no one has those single answers. And you very much work with collective complex issues, and you work in collective ways with many stakeholders, universities, municipalities, companies, and trying to find answers together. And I think that's something very prominent in your work. It's not about your answers, but putting the questions out there and finding answers together. And that's maybe the things I'm going to talk next are of interest to you, even though I know you work in public sector and in public sector systems of how they are organized. But maybe there is something that you recognize in your own work in the following things, and then some things seem very far from your context. So you can reflect this while we go. So this is not about self-organizing teams in public sector. This is about self-organizing teams. I have 2 case examples and some background information. So going to that, where did the buzz really start? This is not a totally new thing. It goes beyond this book, but this book really kind of created the buzz in 2014 from Frederic Laloux, Reinventing Organizations. And he's saying that when the rising complexity pushes corporate hierarchies to their limits, the only meaningful response is a paradigm shift. And his paradigm shift is about very people-centric approach where you try to have simple structures, and those structures are there are structures to facilitate active involvement and self-management by the people who are doing the work. In his book, he goes through kind of his own idea, not his totally own, he's done his research, but of different eras of how we organize organizations. And now he advocates that we are in this era of teal organizations. So he has labeled these different eras with different colors, where there are three pillars of wholeness. So people are whole selves at work. It's about self-management by the people and not by the hierarchies. And there's like a natural evolutionary evolution of the organization. And just very shortly, I'm not here to advocate teal organizations, but this is kind of like the ideal type that he put out in the book. And some organizations do kind of follow that they think they are teal organizations. So if these orange organizations were about hierarchical structures and predict and control and decision making coming high up, downwards, in these teal organizations, it's about self-organizing and network structures, and the decentralized decision making is based on this kind of advice processes. If recruitment was done by HR, here in teal organizations, the colleagues are very much involved in the recruitment. There might be even no titles. And the focus is, instead of individual performance, on team performance. And you're trying to make very simplified project management systems. And one very important point. So if in orange organizations, information is released on basis of need, in teal organizations, the information is totally transparent all the time. So this is kind of the ideal model that he put out there, very much kind of juxtaposing it with the big hierarchical organizations of especially in companies, but also in the public sector. There are some people who are very deep in this. There's these holacratic, sociocratic organizations, and they have all kind of different practices and systems of circles and advice processes and different roles. I'm not very deep in there, but I do find these principles and the basic ideas very familiar and very up to the age. But then, I know many IT sector people working under these kind of conditions, and startups, they always start like, we don't want to be like the previous organizations or the organizations we worked at. We want to be different, and no hierarchies and no titles and things like that. So the question is like, is there anything to learn for us? Isn't this just for those folks? Well, there is one very impressive example that comes from, not from IT or is not very startup-y anymore. Buurtzorg, you can comment in the chat if you've heard of it. But it's a healthcare organization, healthcare company that was started in 2007 in Netherlands. And in its core, there is a very nurse-led model where they try to provide a holistic care. And they have a very human social view of the patient. And those nurse-led model is based on these nurse teams that are neighborhood-based, as they name in Dutch also says. If I start with so they kind of like have self-organizing or self-management, or this belief in people's own capabilities. They have it in two senses. So how they see their clients and how they see their employees. So let's start with this client view. So it's very human view, where they believe that people do want, so this organization works in home care, especially. So their view is that people want to control their own lives as long as possible and as best as possible. And that people are social creatures that seek social interaction and warm relationships. So when this Buurtzorg team takes a client, they really try to kind of get to know the client, the patient, but also the living environment, the people around them, if they have partners or relatives at home, and then also going to further to take informal networks, like what's their family neighborhoods, what clubs or other informal networks they're part of, and then also connecting to the professionals that already are connected to the patient or the client. And from there, they try to kind of build a holistic solution, how to take best care of the client. And the idea is that people want to kind of, they want independence. So they don't want to be like dependent in a bad sense of care, but supported by care. And their patients are both elderly people as well as people, for example, recovering from an operation. And they train people in self-care, both the clients and their families, and seek like what kind of support they can get from the informal and formal networks, and then also provide services themselves. So this is the first layer of the kind of the self-management view. But then what the Buurtzorg is really known for is this self-organizing nurse teams. So they have teams that have about 10, 12 professionals, and they take care of about 50, 60 patients. And these teams, they decide how they organize their work, how they share their responsibilities, how they make decisions, and they also build their own client base in the neighborhood. And when there's a new team starting, they start an office there and get to know the local community and the other professionals working in the field. And also the idea is that this nurse team, when they have a client, they provide a full range of services. So what's the model in many places, very much in Finland, is that, you know, you need a different professional for different purposes. Like, you know, somebody comes and gives you the food, somebody comes and is the nurse, and then when you need some like other medical services, it's like several people coming during the day or during the week. And we all know that especially the elderly people feel not great about it, because it's not about human connection. It's just doing the tasks, and you have like these changing people all the time. So these are self-organizing teams, but they are not alone. They are supported. They are supported by regional coaches that mostly help the teams with problem solving in the questions related to the team, than actually giving them advice in how to deliver the care. This is what the regional coaches have reported. Then they have an IT system for scheduling, documentations, and billing. And the IT system is at least set to work, actually, because the nurses themselves have been involved in designing it. Then the Buurtzorg as an organization has a back office support to take care of administrations. And the teams are provided with opportunities of training, for example, decision making. Like if you start a team, self-organizing team of 10 to 12 people, decision making is something that is very central in getting it going fluently, and why not train people in decision making? They also provided trainings and professional development so that they can actually take care of this whole range of services. But these are support systems, and the core and the focus is on relying the professionalism on nurses. They've said, how do you manage professionals? Well, you don't. So they don't report to managers or such. So if some of you know this model already, maybe also know that it's no longer one team of 4, but it's actually like about 1,000 teams and 10,000 nurses and nurse assistants. They provide more than half of Dutch home care, and they also, there is Buurtzorgs in UK, Denmark, some collaboration in Taiwan. And their patient satisfaction rates are really high. And also the results of how people, for example, recover after operation and gain independence again are really high. Also employee satisfaction, and they are known for delivering the service with lower cost. And this is not self-reporting by the Buurtzorg only. For example, Dutch Ministry of Health makes all kind of service for their service providers, and also has conducted independent studies about Buurtzorg because it's such a exceptional model. And yeah, the management professionals also have been very interested, and one of them has said that they have really created a new management approach integrating simplification, characterized by simple flat organizational structure through which a wide range of services facilitated by information technology can be provided. So yeah, I learned about Buurtzorg years ago and have been following them every once in a while, and it kind of, you know, it proves the point that self-organizing is not just for some knowledge workers, but this is for healthcare. It's not only for some things, but there are also like, there are manufacturing companies that rely on self-organization and so forth. And in the heart of it is the idea that people are professionals, and they want to do their job well. So lessons learned from both from this Buurtzorg and from my own experience is that self-organizing is made of shared goals, autonomy completed with support, transparency of information, and then intention in the things, how you work and how you do things. And now, I'll just check with time. Until when do I have time, Magnus?
About
you have some 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Minutes.
Yeah, but that's
just,
all.
Yeah.
Then we have to finish at 2.
Yeah. That's fine. So just some remarks from. So we've been at demos like self-organizing since 2005. I've been involved since 2008. We started with very flat, no titles, all equal pay, and so on and so on. Then we moved, we were a small organization, but we wanted more impact, so we decided to grow. And then we went to this more traditional model of like 3 teams and team leads. And then 2018, we changed that system into self-organizing teams with no team leads, but some like horizontal responsibilities and teams and so forth. And the teams decide how they organize themselves. They have sales targets, and they take care of, you know, being a team. But then like a few lessons learned on the way, because I was very I had grown in this self-organizing, no hierarchy model. And I was kind of like, of course we come back to this, but it's not an easy ask to tell people like self-organize, even though they are highly educated professionals. So after the year, we noticed many things that we need to develop, and we are constantly developing and thinking how we're organizing, how do we do things. One really important aspect is power. So if you have this decentralized model, the power is more implicit and more negotiated, and you have to balance this all the time. So, for example, some of our things is that there's a lot of communication about how decisions are made. There are task forces that anyone can apply to join when we, for example, renew our compensation model. So we take intention of like that the power wouldn't, like that we say that we're self-organizing, but then some things would be always done by some people. There is a lot of transparency of information that, of course, would strain on people that they do have to follow information. And we have different kind of mentoring structures, both peer-to-peer and from executive team to people. But last thing that I want to highlight is like, what are we self-organizing? It's like, okay, we self-organize the work in teams, but the thing is that is like the highlight of our thing is that we collectively decide what's the agenda for our organization. And we do that twice a year, get together in so-called radar, where we deliberate on our mission and vision and impact model, and also evaluate how we're doing. And because sometimes people think that self-organizing is like, we decide our holidays and things like that. And we do that too, but that's not the point. Like the most valuable thing for us is that we also self-govern of like, what are we here for? So possibilities, no one has answers, no one single person has answers. So that's why we need to go towards more unleashing the potential of people of doing their best. And I think we also need people who don't believe in easy answers in this world. We've seen what that leads to when people are seeking easy answers from strong leaders. But it's self-organizing requires a lot of work. It requires continuous development, and it's a demanding ask for people. So it's a balance of freedom and responsibility, self-fulfillment and shared responsibility. That's it.